is LBC. From Global, leading Britain's conversation, the Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, I said on this show a week ago that I couldn't remember in my lifetime a new government getting off to a worse start, because we had the Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson, publicly disagreeing with the Chancellor, Philip Hammond, and that was specifically over the 1% pay cap for public sector workers. Little did I know that it was going to get a lot worse than that and descend into farce over the course of the last weekend, where now they're all publicly briefing against each other. There was a drinks party that took place last Thursday in London, the Spectator magazine, absolutely stuffed with cabinet ministers, junior ministers, backbench Tory MPs, and everybody behind the backs of their hands briefing against each other. I've no doubt some of you are pretty disgusted by this, because we've only just had a general election that was going to give us, do you remember, strong and stable government. Well, it's a very long way from that. So what's it all about? Well, it's all about the split. It's all about the fault line that has been there in the Conservative Party for nearly 50 years. And it is the attitude towards being part of the European club. And there are some very senior figures in this cabinet who basically do not want Brexit to mean leaving the single market, leaving the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, and they're fighting back. Who are they? Well, of course, the Chancellor, Philip Hammond, continually talks post-Brexit about transitional arrangements, ones that could possibly last for many, many years. You've also got Damien Green. He's effectively the Deputy Prime Minister. Again, very much somebody that does not want what he would call a hard Brexit. And, you know, it's not just them. Amber Rudd, the Home Secretary, very much in that same camp as well. And on the other side, you've got the David Davises, the Boris Johnsons, the Michael Goves, who believe that Brexit was about leaving the court, leaving the customs union, taking back control of our borders. There is a hell of a split there. And you can always tell there's trouble in the Conservative Party, because their reliable old dinosaur, Lord Heseltine, is brought out. I think of the Natural History Museum, but I only say that because he absolutely hates me. And what I say back to him in turn is quite mild, believe me. But even Hezza is at it again, and you just heard him on the news, stirring everything up. So it's not a very pretty picture. And you might say, does it really matter? Well, let me put this to you. It really does. Why? Because we are just about to go into a period where we're going to make the biggest change, the biggest political change this country has seen for hundreds of years. We're leaving the European Union. We're taking back control of our own country. And our chief negotiator, David Davis, goes into these negotiations, and I saw those pictures today. Monsieur Barnier looking very much in charge, looking very much the governor. Indeed, Monsieur Barnier setting the terms of the agenda. So we're discussing at this phase citizens' rights, money, namely what's the exit bill going to be. We're talking also, because they want to, about the Northern Irish border with Ireland, although quite why that's their business I'm not exactly too sure. So all the things we're talking about are being dictated by Barnier, and what we need is a Brexit negotiator in David Davis, who's got, in my opinion, who's got the full support of the British cabinet behind him, a united voice, because if Davis's hand is weakened, then we're unlikely to get the kind of Brexit that 52% and now 70% say we should get on and do. So I'm asking you, does Davis look strong or weak as these second-round negotiations begin? And so if you think he has been weakened, effectively somewhat stabbed in the back by his own colleagues, then please call me on 0345 6060 973. Maybe you think, no, it's okay, Davis is ex-SAS, he's a cool guy, he's still got the upper hand, then text at 84850. Or perhaps you think like, Tony Blair. Did you see him pop up over the weekend, giving those interviews, saying that Brexit must not happen? I have to say, personally, I thought the whole thing was pretty loathsome. I would have thought after the Iraq inquiry, after the Chilcot report, it might be better if he kept out of public life. But no, he's still there, fighting the EU's corner. I wonder whether he thinks if Brexit can be reversed, maybe, just maybe, he could become the President of Europe one day. If that's what you think, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, feel free to tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage at LBC. And of course, I'm here in the London studio, and by going to lbc.co.uk, you can watch us live on Facebook. So, is David Davis looking strong or weak today in the negotiating rooms of Brussels? David from Mansfield, good evening.
It doesn't matter if David Davis is weak. The total Tory government at the minute is embarrassing. I voted for Brexit.
Yep.
Now I'm thinking, probably not, because what we're going to look like in Europe, we're not strong. We've got nothing to fall back on. I just think we're an embarrassment. Well,
actually, David, I'm going to disagree a little bit with you. There's a lot to fall back on when you've got, you've got America, you've got Australia, you've got Japan, and many other countries, lining up and saying, "Hey,
we've just done Europe has just done a free trade deal with Japan. Yes, I know it's took them years to do.
Hang on, Switzerland did this years ago, David.
Yeah, very true, very true.
I mean, no, look." I agree with the first thing that you've said, that it is actually embarrassing, and it is very difficult to see how Barnier is going to take David Davis seriously, because he's going to say, well, David, these points you're asking for, is this your personal opinion? Or is it the opinion of the Foreign Secretary? Or is it the opinion of the Chancellor? It's difficult, isn't it, for Davis to represent the British government and be taken seriously, given this really bad behaviour?
Well, the Tory government at the minute, I'd say I'm a centre-right person.
Yeah.
And I voted for the Tories in the last government because from Mansfield we wanted the hard Brexit. We voted for the hard Brexit. That's what we voted for. I think everybody who voted for Brexit voted for a hard Brexit. When they voted for a soft Brexit,
no.
We voted out. But obviously now we're going to get, the way that things are looking, is a soft Brexit. If we vote the Labour Party in, we'll get a soft Brexit for some reason. But what's the point of voting Brexit to get a soft Brexit?
Well,
House is out in my.
No, well, I think, and David, I think, as I say, the opinion polls say that 70% now, however they voted, whatever they thought at the time, think it's a democratic decision. Let's get on with it. And what's interesting, David, is, and you were a Brexit voter. I wonder how high immigration was on your list of concerns when you voted Brexit.
Huge. You don't know what's happening up in the old pit villages that are happening up in the north of Nottingham. It's totally flooded with Eastern Europeans. I'm not saying they're a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's totally. There's places like Shirebrook that probably people won't have heard of. It's now just totally gone because of Michael Ashley's Sports Direct.
Yeah.
Obviously employed by everybody who is Eastern European because they're low-cost labour. Fair enough, no problem. You're a businessman. You want to get costs down.
Yeah, I'm going to say.
But what has it done?
Yeah. Mike Ashley, by the way, folks, is not on his own in doing this. A lot of big businesses have. But what you're saying, David, is it's fundamentally changed the community.
Totally changed the community.
Yeah.
Totally changed everything. But that's not my point. My point is, I voted for Brexit, but we're not getting the Brexit that we voted for. We're getting a totally different Brexit that's going to be coming, and it's just a shamble.
Well, I believe that David Davis wants the kind of Brexit that you voted for. And I say that because I shared platforms with him all over the country during the referendum campaign. I've known him a long time. But if his hand is being weakened because his own side are effectively trying to put knives in his back to try and water down Brexit, then we're not going to get it. David, I thank you for your call. And I think there are millions of people like David out there, who voted because they do genuinely want us to get a grip on our borders. And at the moment, there is no sign of that at all. Bob in Bath, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel.
Good evening. So, is David Davis looking strong or weak in this negotiation?
I think you are doing a very, very disservice to our government.
Me?
You are backstabbing everyone.
Hang on.
I've supported you, Nigel, many, many times. I've spoken to your offices. I've spoken to your officers.
Yep.
And now, all you're doing is trying to split our government. Now, our government is what we have voted for. We had a referendum. You now support Corbyn many, many times. His name has cropped up many, many times. It's time you got off your high horse and supported our government.
Well, Bob, hang on a second. Bob, before we go on, Bob, hang on, because you're raising some big points here. This government doesn't need any help from me to split. It's split already. Look at the way they're behaving, Bob. Publicly rowing with each other, briefing behind each other's backs at spectator parties. Just read the Sunday newspapers. Bob, this isn't my doing. This isn't my doing.
You just read the social media, all you guys. You're nothing but a load of traitors. You're becoming as big a traitor as the rest of them.
To what?
Support our country.
Bob, I want to support our country. I want to support our country. And I want to support our government. But how can I when they're not giving a clear, consistent tune?
They can't give it because you and the likes of you are stabbing them in the back all the time. Lay off.
Well, Bob...
We've made a decision. Support our country.
I do. Bob, I've spent my whole political career believing we should be independent, free and self-governing. And I promise you, when Theresa May gave that Lancaster House speech, I said on this programme that I agreed with every word she'd said. All right? I'm quite prepared, Bob, to bury any party political loyalties in the interest of us getting the Brexit that we voted for. Right now, Bob, we've got a government that really are at sixes and sevens, and that to me is the problem. Bob, I thank you very much for your call, for your opinion. I've been called a lot of things over the years, and the list just keeps growing. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast with Matt Fry.
HS2 construction contracts announced today costing £6.6 billion. Chris Grayling.
Korean, big British construction firm. We want it to succeed. It's having a difficult time at the moment.
So are you giving them a leg up with this in their time of need? Is that what this is about?
They are part of a consortium that's won this contract, and we've got a clear guarantee from the other members of the consortium that if something goes wrong, they'll step in and make sure this is all delivered.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast with Matt Fry every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
Are you confused about PPI? At PPI Hotline, we want to give you the facts. There is absolutely every reason to check you had PPI. Even if you think you never have, we can help you find out, as you could be owed thousands. And now there's a deadline. We just need the name of the bank you've had loans or credit cards with, and we'll check for free. So find out now if you're owed by texting WIN to 82222.
PPI Hotline. Text WIN to 82222.
Match, Malcher, workplace chair, pension, pop. Sound a bit alien? Well, he's saying it's time for small businesses to set up a workplace pension. Still sound alien? Don't worry, the People's Pension can help. We're an award-winning scheme run by a provider with 30 years pensions experience. Our complete solution gives small businesses total support. Join the thousands of businesses already signed up at thepeoplespension.co.uk/alien. The People's Pension's a workplace pension scheme regulated by the Pensions Regulator. The People's Pension. Designed for people, not aliens.
On a travel pack tailor-made holiday, you get to see the very best of the world. Tour the famous Route 66, the spectacular Canadian Rockies. Experience the magic and history of India, the wilds of Africa, or the exotic Far East. Start your journey with Travel Pack. For amazing prices on your tailor-made holiday of a lifetime, call Travel Pack today on 0208 903 9999 or visit travelpack.com. Atoll protected.
Hi, I'm Michael Owen, and I know what it's like to be injured. If you've been injured and it's not your fault, you need to speak to Gowing Law. Text WIN to 80800 and Gowing Law will do the rest.
Thanks, Michael. If you've been injured on the road or at work, Gowing Law could help you win thousands in compensation. We can tell you instantly what you might be owed. Find out right now and text WIN to 80800.
So win with Gowing. Text WIN to 80800.
You can earn more with a degree.
And you can get a degree in just 2 years with a course at GSM London.
Degrees are awarded by Plymouth University. And if you don't have a formal qualification, you can start on our foundation year.
Places are available for September at our Greenford and Greenwich campuses.
Enroll now. Text GSM to 66777.
Or visit gsmlondon.ac.uk.
GSM London.
Have bold dreams.
We've been thinking about Lucy.
Wait!
And how she's not very happy that her phone is on its way to Preston without her. And with it 86 selfies, 4 cat videos, that guy's phone number and her banking app. But at least she isn't worried about someone stealing her money. That's because at NatWest we've already thought about the left phone on the train scenario. It's why we never store your bank details on your mobile. NatWest. We are what we do.
App available to customers with online banking and a UK number.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
Well, before the break, I was told all sorts of things. It's all my fault. Everything is my fault. Brexit is my fault. The split in the government is my fault. And Gordon was on there having a real go. And if any of you are feeling that you fancy a sort of early evening punch-up, 0345 6060 973. I'm sitting here. I can take it. On Facebook, Douglas says, send Mog to assist Davis. I wondered how long it would be before Jacob's name cropped up. Theo says, good Lord, all the mandarins within the Tory party have started sharpening the knives. Let's save the Brexit cause. Ben says what we need is politicians that respect the referendum and stop negotiating and leave. So Ben's for walking out tomorrow. Well, one thing for certain is that Tony Blair absolutely does not respect the result of the referendum. He said it must be stopped. Here's a thought I get from Ollie on text. Get David Davis to work with business leaders to execute the best deal possible. Similar to the Trump administration. Current structure won't work with a majority cabinet but don't believe in Brexit. It's a fair point. May should sack all the Ramonas in her cabinet and just walk away, Mrs May, says Joe in London. So one or two people getting very impatient, I sense, with the whole renegotiation process. I didn't vote for a hard or soft Brexit. I voted to leave the European Union to become a free and independent country. I get on Twitter. It's a Whitehall farce. Baldrick could do a better job at the moment. Rees-Mogg for the top job. Now, this just doesn't stop. Whether this is just me on this show, or whether there is a sort of national pro-Jacob phenomenon since he named his 6th child Sixtus, I don't know. Something perhaps is going on. Gordon in Watford, has Davis been weakened by all of these splits?
I don't think he's been helped. I mean, Nigel, I am not interested in a hard Brexit or a soft Brexit or an easy Brexit or a difficult Brexit. But I fear that we're gradually sliding towards a fudge Brexit or a botch Brexit or a patchwork quilt Brexit. Now, and I was in the city, apologies for that. And so you'll know what I'm going to say next. You'll understand it. If the European Union was a share, I'd be a seller.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, if we look at Europe, what has it achieved in the last 43 years since we've been in? The worst growth, you know all the figures, it's awful. And I don't want to be any part of that awfulness for any more time at all.
Let alone, Gordon, what it's done to democracy. Just look at poor little Greece, who've literally been crushed by these people. I mean, how anybody on the left of politics can think, and they're split, of course, but how anyone on the left of politics in Britain can think the EU is a good thing when frankly, you get general elections being overruled by the European Commission. I don't know, Gordon.
No, and I agree with you on that. And I think that the Conservatives could do some things to try and get the people behind them, which they were, and I think still are. And what they have to do is be a little bit, to listen a little bit more to the people.
Yeah.
And actually, they can enact several things which will make the passage easier. Very simply, the better the Brexit deal we get, and I want a true Brexit or a real Brexit, which means sovereignty and laws and borders. I want all of those things. But to make it easier for those people who are feeling the pinch at the moment, there are many things which can be done. Foreign aid, if we cut it in half, to 0.35%.
Yeah, but Mrs May is committed to keeping it at the Cameron level, Gordon. It's going to be £13 billion next year.
The reason she did so badly is because she concentrated on Brexit thinking she had it. She had a lead in the polls, a big lead, when she said those words on the steps of Downing Street, when she was first put in as Prime Minister, not elected at that stage, when she said she wanted a fairer Britain.
She did.
And basically, she's done nothing to make it fairer. And if you like, my crazy mathematics have quickly worked out a way to actually save 11 billion. I actually think, yes, the amber lights are flashing towards another general election, which I don't think will happen quickly, but it could.
But Gordon, even if they do one or two things that are very popular measures, it's very difficult for the people to get behind a government that is giving out different messages. And on Brexit, they really are.
They are split. I mean, very simply, I agree with a flippant point, perhaps it was flippant, that he made. If you're not on side, if you don't want Brexit, then you should move over and let somebody else take the seat. Because, quite frankly, that's no position from which to negotiate. I believe that when we look at negotiations, Britain does not play or seem to realise it's got the best hand here.
Of course it has. Now, Gordon, I'm with you on that. I think we've got a great hand, and yet we're being dictated to. Monsieur Barnier looks like the headmaster. He set the things we'll negotiate before we can even discuss trade. And then, in an attempt to really undermine us, Gordon, he last week met up with Corbyn, Sturgeon and Carwyn-Jones from Wales. We've now got Verhofstadt, the EU's representative, suggesting Corbyn becomes part of the negotiating team. So David Davis actually is struggling both ways here, isn't he? Number one, he's being undermined by his own cabinet, and number two, you've got a willful attempt now by the EU to try and split the British political system. That's how I see it, Gordon. Are you optimistic, Gordon, that Brexit's going to happen properly?
I didn't quite catch that, Nigel.
So I said, are you optimistic that Brexit is going to happen properly?
No, I'm not optimistic of it, but I think it still could.
Still could. Thank you, Gordon, very much indeed. Lisa, in Southern, in Warwickshire, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. It's a pleasure to speak to you because I've been a fan of yours for many years.
Well, as a fan, that's lovely. But you tell me, Lisa, what on earth should be done? How is David Davis, at any point in this, going to be representing a united cabinet and government?
Well, I just think at the moment that the political system is just in an absolute shambles. I've always voted Tory, and I've always voted Tory, not just because I've always lived in a Tory stronghold and that they're always guaranteed to get in, but I've always voted Tory because my parents were self-employed. We've been very low end users of the public sector, really, and we've paid a lot of tax. And, I've always felt I am very much a Tory, and I've always supported the Tories, although even when Labour were in power for 13 years, I've always stuck by them, and I've always thought that their points of view were truer. And I was delighted when the Tories got in, albeit a coalition, because I just thought, thank God, we've got a proper government, almost, to a point.
Doesn't look like it now, Lisa, does it, just a few weeks in?
No, and this is what I'm so disappointed about, is because one of the things that May really did so badly was that she had such high opinion ratings. And what she didn't do was she forgot about her manifesto. She completely didn't build something that would help her win locally. She was thinking, OK, this is about strong and stable government for Brexit. She forgot that actually what Jeremy Corbyn was doing, he was playing top trumps and he was winning because he was basically thinking, right, which votes do I need? Who from?
No, and they segmented it, Labour, very, very cleverly. And when I say that, I get people screaming at me that I'm now a Corbyn supporter. I'm not. They just fought a better, cleverer campaign. But Lisa, what do you think should now happen, given that David Davis is out there doing battle on behalf of the country with a divided cabinet and government behind him?
Well, I mean, I think, for goodness sake, I think one of the things I don't like about politics is how you can have a political party in power and somehow you've got politicians sabotaging your own party because you want a political gain out of it. You want a better job. You want your side to come through. And that's one of the frustrating parts.
But how do we do it, Lisa? What has to happen?
I think the Tories need to either keep their mouths shut, keep them be unified, albeit you might be frustrated, but I think the party is more important than individuals, and I think the Tories need to deliver this Brexit. You know, I mean, it's a soft or hard Brexit. It makes no difference. It's Brexit.
It's either Brexit. It's either Brexit or it isn't. You know, it's as simple as that, isn't it? Lisa, I sense your frustration. I'm sure there are a lot of Tory voters feeling like you. Steve tells me on Facebook, I tell you, with this government, you won't have any Brexit, and you won't be part of the EU either. We'll be in a vacuum. Craig says, did Theresa May not expect some sort of rebellion when she increased the number of Ramonas in her cabinet? She is losing her grip, and the only reason why I voted for her because I thought she'd deliver on Brexit. How wrong am I? Well, Craig, it's probably just a little bit too early to tell. Anonymous text here. You are the main problem for what's happening in the UK. Thank you. Nigel, it's only the second round of negotiations and you are undermining it. The EU watch what you say, says Peter in Southampton. I've got more of these. Charles says, sadly, you are driving a wedge into the only government we've got, unless you want Labour to come in and wreck the economy, says Charles. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't have to do anything to attempt to split this government. They all hate each other already. I've nothing to do with it. I promise you. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Moira Alderson.
The final routes for the Manchester and Leeds branches of HS2 high-speed rail line have been revealed. The proposals mean most of a newly built housing estate in Mexborough in South Yorkshire will be demolished. The Education Secretary has announced an extra £2.6 billion over the next 2 years for schools in England. Justine Greenings told the Commons the current funding system is unfair and outdated. Hundreds of people have turned out in Poland's capital Warsaw to see the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. They've started a 5-day tour with Prince George and Princess Charlotte. That'll also take them to Germany. LBC weather, any rain should clear from the far north, leaving a dry night for most places. Feeling muggy in the south, an overnight low of 17 degrees.
LBC Travel, good evening. I'm Andy Lake. Well, starting off in North London, the M25 clockwise is down to just 2 lanes from Farage, junction 25 for Enfield, because of an accident causing delays of well over 2 hours back from junction 23 for South Mims. Further into London, the North Circular is queuing eastbound approaching Waterworks Corner, where it was shut all afternoon to deal with a serious collision. All lanes are back open now, but delays still as far as the Coney Hatch interchange. In Hampshire, the M3 is blocked northbound to recover an accident between junction 14 for the M27 and 13 for Chandler's Ford. It's solid back to junction 7 for Hedge End. In the West Midlands, the M6 has 2 lanes shut northbound between junction 10 for Wolverhampton and 10A for the M54 after a lorry caught fire earlier on. Queues are back to junction 8 for the M5. And there were delays of up to 3 hours and some cancellations on flights to and from Gatwick Airport after a tyre burst on an earlier flight. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
Moving house, nightmare. I need a plasterer, plumber, electrician, builder, painter, locksmith, gardener, and somebody to move my valuables, the drinks trolley. Relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. They have all the tradespeople you can think of, reputable and reviewed, so you always get a job well done. Well done me, I say, for getting it all sorted. I shall reward myself with a cheeky tipple from the trolley. Chin chin, pass me the gin. Visit trustatrader.com.
Welcome to London's exquisite Indian dining experience, Marla Restaurant. The finest North Indian cuisine in the most charming setting. Find us in the heart of one of London's divine hidden gems, St Catherine's Dock. Marla Restaurant. Visit us in St Catherine's Dock or go to marlarestaurant.co.uk.
Marla. Discover a jewel in London's secret paradise.
With breakdown cover from the AA, we'll do whatever it takes to make sure your big wheels keep on turning. Our mechanics usually get you going again in 30 minutes. Breakdown cover from the AA. Because anything can happen.
It's how London buys its cars. Car Giant.
Summer, the best time of the year, and the best time to buy from Car Giant. We've up to 10,000 quality used cars in stock, all at our best ever prices, with new stock arriving every day. Car Giant. Giant choice, giant savings. Book a test drive now and enjoy summer in your next car.
It's how London buys its cars. Car Giant. When you need more space.
Think creatively. What could you use a log cabin for? A studio? A home office? A den for the kids? Creative Living will design and build a log cabin to suit your needs, even taking care of electricity and climate control. See for yourself at our 3 large cabin display villages in Surrey. Find out where at creativelivingcabins.co.uk.
Your own log cabin, handcrafted, the creative living way.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
David Davis getting on with the second round of negotiations with the European Union with, I'm suggesting to you, his hand seriously weakened by a cabinet that are split, that are briefing against each other, and where the disagreements on what the shape of Brexit should be are clearly very profound. Strangely, to me at least, callers and texters and tweeters seem to think it's my fault, that somehow I'm stabbing the government in the back. I don't need to. They're doing it to themselves. But the other story that we have been following over the course of the last week and more is, of course, the story about baby Charlie Gard. And I've made it very, very clear from the start of this that I believed it was about parental choice, that provided little Charlie wasn't suffering unnecessarily, the decision as to whether he should go to America to get a revolutionary new treatment that may or may not work, that decision should be taken by the parents and not by the hospital here in London. And at no point have we done this because we want to have a fight with Great Ormond Street, who've done phenomenal work over many, many decades. It's just that medical science moves at different speeds around the world. And I found it very hard to believe that the medical establishment, backed up, it seems, by almost the entire political establishment, were not for giving Charlie's parents the opportunity of giving that boy one last chance. I think I found myself the only political figure backing these parents in this campaign. I know a lot of you felt the same way. And I'm pleased to report that what happened on Friday was in many ways a great victory for parental choice, in that the judge said that he would allow for the American doctor, Dr. Hirano, who's the professor of neurology at Columbia University Medical Center in New York, he would allow the doctor to come and examine little Charlie Gard to give an opinion. And that is exactly what Dr. Hirano has been doing today, and he'll be doing some more of this tomorrow, and there will be a report that goes back to the court this Friday, and we'll get a decision next Tuesday, a final decision next Tuesday on what is going to happen. And I think it was a great victory that the judge has allowed for this to happen. And I, having spoken to Charlie's parents, face to face, and if this doctor says, look, I'm sorry, there is absolutely nothing that can be done, they will accept this. They're rational, sensible people. But all the while they feel there's a glimmer of hope, please don't blame them for fighting to give their kid one last chance. I suspect every person listening to this show, if they put in the same position, would feel the same way. So we'll see what happens with that story over the course of the next few weeks. And back to David Davis going in. It looked to me rather like the headmaster's office with Mr. Barnier this morning, and without a united team behind him. Marin says to me, Nigel, can you publicly ask Tony Blair to keep out of Brexit talks? He helped wreck our EU membership. He should have no power to wreck our EU exit. Douglas says, the more the EU try to drive us down, the more I think we will succeed. We are at our best in adversity. Douglas, we are at our best in adversity if united. and this is the point I make to my detractors right now, who are saying that I'm damaging the process by criticising the government is split. If the government was united, and if it was pushing to get the things that Theresa May outlined in her Lancaster House speech in January of this year, I would be on this show saying, great, keep going. The fact is, it's just not happening. Chris in Blackheath is my next caller. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Secret Remainer. How you doing?
I'm a secret Remainer, am I? Oh, God. Well, now, I tell you what.
What do you mean, are you? How many times have I told you you're a secret Remainer?
Am I?
You know, you stood up in the European Parliament. You helped the Remainers by acting like a petulant child straight after the referendum. You've got Lectern Theresa, who keeps on flipping, dragging a lectern around wherever she is. She's not happy unless she's standing at a lectern making some kind of diktat. You then got people coming out with no plans, like yourself, like Boris, like what's this guy's name, Michael Gove. Everywhere goes, he goes leaving a trail of destruction. he's terrible at education. What else have you got here? I'm not sure if I'm warming to you. I'm not sure if I am. Now that I know that you are the Remainer General, but it's not just you.
Well, I tell you what, Chris. I mean, if you're right, in what you're saying here, then it's been a pretty good cover act for the last 25 years, hasn't it?
Do you know what? The Scarlet Pimpernel, they seek him here, they seek him there, they seek the Pimpernel everywhere. Come on, Nigel, seriously. You know, this time I made sure I made notes just so I could get my point across. Distinctly, I honestly believe, and I hope, because everybody knows, I am a Remainer.
No, I'd never have guessed Chris in Blackheath. I really wouldn't.
Well, Nigel, let's put it this way. We're not going to leave the EU, and if we do, we are going to...
So you're a Blairite. You're a Blairite. It's never going to happen, yeah?
I don't even think it's about being a Blairite. I think, do you know, in the House of the Parliament, the MP that actually stood up the day after the referendum and actually said, we do not need to do this. This is a plebiscite referendum. You know, and
that's
and
right.
he
That's
was
right.
that.
All those horrible, thick people, those voters that don't wash enough.
It's not about being...
It is. Oh, Chris, it is. Believe you me. I hear it again and again and again. The stupidity of the Brexit voter. We are the masters. We know what's good for everybody. Well, do you know what, Chris? I mean, the greatest thing about the referendum was that the establishment got the kicking that it deserved for its sheer arrogance over decades in assuming that it knows what's good for ordinary folk.
Yeah, but Nigel, you've just actually, you just said it there. The establishment got a kicking. But at the end of the day, what about the people who come after you, who've got to make the money for the country to take care of the older people? It's not about just giving the establishment a kick in, Nigel.
No, Chris, you're quite right. It's about the United Kingdom becoming independent, democratic, free, and opening ourselves up to the 85% of the global economy that is not part of the failing European Union. Chris, I am optimistic. I am bullish. I think there is so much more we can do, freed from the shackles of this club.
Well. You're pessimistic as well, Nigel.
Chris, if we do this properly, it'll be fabulous. The worry I've got, if I'm being frank with you, is I'm not sure this government, given that it's so divided, actually knows what to do. And
Can I go one step further?
Go on.
Can I go one step further?
Yeah.
You shouldn't be worried about the fact that the government don't know what they're doing, because they don't. They haven't got a plan. They haven't got a clue what they're doing. You've got David Davis, who's going to be slaughtered on the Parliament, on the steps of the EU Parliament, not because the EU wants to do it. It's because he's being sold down the river by his own party.
I agree with that. No. I absolutely agree. So, Chris, given that you and I come at this from a different political perspective, what do you think should happen next?
I think you're not going to like it. Your supporters aren't going to like it.
Right.
But you know what? It's back to the ballot box and debate it properly. Debate it properly.
Another referendum.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But Chris, it wasn't the best of three, was it? I mean, we were told this was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and we took it.
Nigel, do you know what? Nothing's a lifetime opportunity. That's number one. And number two, if everyone's sitting there saying, "Oh, let's cut the budget, the foreign aid budget," Do you think the government are going to spend more money on what the government spend money on what they want to spend it on? They don't spend the money on what the people want them to spend it on.
No.
Come on, Nigel. You know that's true.
Chris, you've entertained me hugely. Thank you. If it was a 3-hour show, I'd keep you on forever because it was great fun. But there we are. What about Corbyn joining the negotiating team, says William from Newcastle. Well, that is what Mr Verhofstadt was suggesting earlier on today. The problem with the European Union is that the people running it live in their own little bubble, just like our own members of Parliament. They don't have the slightest interest in what the people want or have to say, says Philip in Whiteleaf. Well, I think they do have an interest in what people have to say and think. It's called election time, Philip, and then they have a lot of interest in it. We should pull Davis out of the negotiations with the EU for 12 months and concentrate on trade deals with all those other countries first, so the EU cannot hold a gun to our head, says Paul. Do you know what? Logically, that is absolutely right. But, of course, the trouble is, our lords and masters say that we're not allowed to negotiate or sign any trade deals until we've left the European Union. So, in a sense, they've got us in a vice both ways. And I think we're going to need, Paul, some real courage and some real bravery and some real leadership. There are big global opportunities out there. And I was pleased, actually, to see that Liam Fox was out on the TV screens again and radio waves this weekend. He's been quiet for a long time. He is the guy whose job is to open us up to the rest of the world. In many ways, he's got one of the most exciting jobs any British minister has ever had. And Paul, we can't be told by unelected bureaucrats we're not free to speak to the rest of the world to shape our global future. It simply isn't good enough in my view. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Chris Grayling says HS2 will bring huge economic benefits to the country. But is it the right time and the right way to spend tens of billions of pounds?
Clive Bull on LBC.
The best place for sleepyheads is in their bridge bedding bed.
At Bridge Bedding, we have hundreds of beds and mattresses in stock from the biggest brands in the UK. We'll beat any price on a like-for-like basis and we'll deliver for free. So before you buy your next new bed, visit a Bridge Bedding Centre, Rectory Groveley-on-Sea, Upminster Road, Hornchurch, or online at bridgebedding.com.
The best place for sleepyheads is in their bridge bedding bed.
Right now, BT Infinity comes with our lowest ever standard fibre price. It's $24.99 a month on a 12-month contract, with $59.99 up front. That's a welcome discount of over 25%. You'll get the UK's most powerful Wi-Fi compared to major broadband providers and free access to 5 million Wi-Fi hotspots across the UK. So don't miss our lowest ever fibre price. Join BT today at bt.com/deals.
Discount versus price for month 13. $34.99 per month, 25 gigabytes usage. Prices may change. Terms apply to verify. See bt.com/smarthub.
Stub out your last cigarette and celebrate with a holiday in the Caribbean. London South Bank University is looking for smokers to take part in an exciting new research project in the capital. You'll be paid to take part, and along with the chance to become a non-smoker, there's a Caribbean holiday and more to be won. So hurry, search online for LSBU Stop Smoking Study. That's LSBU Stop Smoking Study. Over 18s only, T's and C's apply.
Moving house, nightmare. I need a plasterer, plumber, electrician, builder, painter, locksmith, gardener, and somebody to move my valuables, the drinks trolley. Relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. They have all the tradespeople you can think of, reputable and reviewed, so you always get a job well done. Well done me, I say, for getting it all sorted. I shall reward myself with a cheeky tipple from the trolley. Chin chin, pass me the gin. Visit trustatrader.com.
Want a brand new apartment starting from just a £7,500 deposit? Come to Galliard Homes and purchase your new home with Help to Buy from just £150,000. Live in dynamic space close to stations that connect you to central London. Plus, we fully furnish your new home free of charge. Call us on 0203 770 6300. to hear about our range of incentives to help you get on the ladder. Visit galliardhomes.com. That's galliardhomes.com. Live the lifestyle with Galliard.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
David Davis going into the lion's den with knives in his back that have been planted there by people in his own cabinet and government. It's hard to believe, given the enormity and the magnitude and the opportunity of what Brexit represents. James on Twitter says, a question for you. Given you know the EU a lot better than most, if we did negotiate trade deals anyway, what could they do to us? James, do you know what they could do? They could throw us out. Oh, we're leaving anyway. There's nothing they could do to us, and that really is the point. And even if we wanted to obey the letter of the treaty, we might not sign the deals until the day we leave, but we should now actively be negotiating them. Now, I've heard that man Verhofstadt, you know, who I do battle with in the European Parliament, I've heard him saying Britain should not even be allowed to negotiate. The hell with that. We should be going, James, at full pelt. You know, the point about the Brexit vote is it was not Britain becoming isolationist. Far from it. It was Britain being able to be a genuine global trading figure in the 21st century. On text I get, is it the same Tony Blair who wanted us to join the euro? You bet your life. And I think he probably would too. Nigel, we should offer a referendum on the deal, and if it's rejected, we return to WTO rules. Cheers, Dave in Basingstoke. Well, yeah, I mean, look, you know, if we did that... Dave, we are going to leave. You know, I'm still totally confident. I do not believe that any political party, certainly Labour or Tory, could go against Article 50, could go against us leaving. We are going to leave. What we're debating is whether we're, in the end, going to finish up leaving in name only. It would be excellent for Britain if Jeremy Corbyn joined the negotiating team on the side of the EU, says James in Barnes. Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it, given that Corbyn for 33 years has sat in Parliament and been far more Eurosceptic than me. He's been far more critical of the European project than I've ever been. My language on the EU is very moderate compared to what Tony Benn and the gang had been saying all the way back to the mid-1970s. Gareth in Swindon, did David Davis look to be in control today, in your opinion?
No, not really, but I wanted to call really about what you said about Tony Blair earlier, and if anybody out there has any thoughts on him. You know, whilst I don't agree with what he's saying now, I wish we had somebody, you know, with his passion, kind of debating for Remain when the debate was happening. I feel like there was nobody really on the Remain side that had any charisma behind them. You know, David Cameron was...
Hang on, you had the Prime Minister, you had...
He was towing party lines, though, wasn't he? And their party line was, well, we're not really sure.
No, Gareth. But Cameron fought for Remain with all his heart and soul, as indeed did the Chancellor George Osborne. I mean, they gave it everything they had.
Yeah, well, you can argue that, but I still think that the whole referendum was called because of pressures within the Tory party. I still think we can't be sure what sort of pressures were kind of going on behind the scenes.
It was obvious. Gareth, they were losing millions of voters to UKIP, and they were beginning to see sitting MPs wanting to defect to UKIP. He had to do something to stop that from happening, because it was going at a hell of a pace, and the referendum, he thought, was his way out.
Yeah, and I think that realistically, my point was that you've got all these passionate people on the Brexit side, that like yourself, like Boris Johnson, big personalities. I don't think David Cameron or George Osborne connected with the people like how yourself did, or how Boris did either. And Lib Dems, well, no one really takes them seriously or listens to them anyway. So
hang on, Nick Clegg. You know, I mean, this guy had been Deputy Prime Minister.
Yeah, well,
very senior position in our country.
I think you're saying that with a pinch of
Gareth,
irony.
Really, honestly.
No, honestly, not listen to the Lib Dems? They lost so many votes after they got into power.
Gareth, whatever the...
My point is actually that, whilst I would love that we had someone like Blair, not Blair himself, because I don't think he would have helped the Brexit or the Remain cause at all. I wish we had somebody with his passion fighting for it. We didn't have that through... I didn't feel like we had that.
The Remainers lack passion. I think actually what the Remainers had in that referendum campaign, Gareth, was a total diet of daily negativity. They kept telling us, unless you vote to Remain, your house price will collapse, the stock market will disappear. They almost predicted that a plague of locusts would descend upon our crops. They fought an entirely negative campaign, Gareth, and they thought they'd win because the Tories won the election in 15 by being negative about the SNP. They felt they won the referendum in Scotland by being negative about what withdrawal from the United Kingdom would mean. It was the third year in a row of negative campaigning, and it didn't work. Gareth, I thank you for your point that Blair... Whatever his faults, Gareth makes the point, Blair is a politician of passion who makes his arguments, which indeed, at his best, and I'm going back 10 or 15 years, he was probably the best in the business by quite some margin at doing that. Sean says, trade will decide this. The Germans will not want to lose exports to the UK. Logic, Sean, says you're right. I'm not so sure Mr Barnier is thinking about economic logic. I think he and Juncker are trying to preserve the failing project that is in many ways falling apart at the seams. And I love it, how when we discuss Brexit it gets so personal. It's wonderful. Jan says, we need a referendum that is not based on lies. Your lies, Nigel. Jan, we've had this many times, and I challenge you all now. Tell me one lie I told during that referendum campaign. Just one, Jan. Lines are still open, Jan. 0345 6060 973. Lynn says Hammond should be sacked. Matt says this government are deliberately messing this up. Think about it. A Remainer PM, a Remainer Chancellor, and so on. Oh, Matt, it can't be that bad, can it? Nick in Newbury. How's Brexit going? Is David Davis being let down by his own side?
Well, it's all very well for you, Nigel, to come on here Monday to Thursday every night, reaping up all your fans' affection, thinking that you got them Brexit and everything, when actually they're actually in government doing it. You're not. You talk about splits.
Yeah.
You talk about splits. What happened to UKIP? You talk about loathsome. You look at people like Paul Nuttall and people like that. I think it's all double standards and hypocrisy. And just on that point that last caller was making, I know one of your specific mantras is that UKIP, or you got the vote. You got the referendum. No, you didn't. They were going to have the vote anyway.
No, they weren't.
A wonderful diversion.
No, they weren't.
A wonderful diversion about Europe. Banging on about Europe was a massive diversion against the problems the Tory party faced. And you're a Tory just as much as they are.
Oh, I? But why have I not been a member since 1990 then?
Because you couldn't get elected.
Well, hang on, I was... But I was...
You couldn't get elected, you couldn't get elected.
But I was 26 years old and working in industry. Nick, you can fire whatever venom you like at me, but it's got to have some basis of fact, hasn't it?
Well, the reason why you didn't carry on in the Tory party because you couldn't win a seat. Now, that's no disrespect to you.
No, Nick, sorry, that is utter... That is utter nonsense. I was only a member of the Conservative Party. I had no ambition ever to be in elected politics. I had a proper job and a life, and I only got involved in politics and helped to form a brand new party whose prospects of success were just about zero because I believed so strongly in the issue. Simple as that. So, Nick, you're a Remainer, presumably, are you?
No, I'm not either. I want to see Europe. I want to see a proper political federal Europe. To me,
right.
The referendum was complete false, based on false notions.
So you want
really coming out of anything.
You want a European army, European foreign policy, European currency. You are a European, Nick.
Well, I'm an internationalist, and that's what Corbyn is, and that's what the Benite anti-Brexit, anti-European stance is. Nothing to do with your type of Brexit.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Look.
I think you understand now.
It is very difficult. It is very difficult to be an internationalist if you're part of the European Union and forbidden from making your own relationships around the rest of the world, Nick.
Not at all, because the potential of Europe can advance internationally.
Ah,
that's why.
One global government. Yes, That's what the Trotskyites want. Nick, I thank you for your call. It's not what I want, I've got to tell you. Well, there we are. Quite a lot of personal stuff over the course of the last hour, but that isn't really relevant. Well, in the wake of this mix-up and these terrible briefings that are going on, Theresa May will remind ministers at Tuesday's cabinet meeting of the importance of keeping their discussions private, Downing Street has said, following a series of leaks. That is too little, too late. Either the Prime Minister sacks a few people and gets a cabinet that is united on Brexit, or she needs to go herself, because frankly it's a farce and David Davis is being put in a completely impossible position. Something has got to give. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow at 7. Coming up at 10 it's Ian Collins, but up next it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you. Now coming up at 9...